Hi, I'm Pokemon. That's right, Pokemon, like your mother. And this is going to be a very basic guide to understanding Pokemon natures. And I mean basic. So get ready to learn.
The first thing I do when I get a new Pokemon is check to see what its nature is. So I go to check summary, go to the icon with the pen and paper, and I can see that this Excadrill has a relaxed nature. So what does that even mean? Does that mean he's a pretty chill guy? I wish. So let's figure it out. Most guides that explain natures go really deep into the stats in the EVs and the IVs and complicated numbers right off the bat, when most people that discover natures exist, they just want to know if a relaxed Excadrill is good or bad. What nature is my Excadrill supposed to be? So let's take a look at this chart. If you type in Pokemon natures anywhere, this will come up like 50 times, so it's really easy to find. I think this one is the easiest because it has it color-coded. Most people don't have these memorized because there's 25 possible natures, so it's good to just always have this chart on hand. The stats in the green will increase by 10%, and the stats in the red will decrease by 10%. This is all going on behind the scenes and isn't as obvious to see as your Pokemon going up in level. So if you want to make your Excadrill as strong as possible and maximize his full potential, there's a lot more to it than just getting him up to level 100. Because Pokemon have different natures, all level 100 Excadrill will not be equal. Here we have 3 perfect level 100 Excadrills with maxed out speed. But you could see that even though they're the exact same level and the exact same Pokemon, they still have different numbers of stat totals in the end. This is because all 3 of them have a different nature, and the nature will affect the end result. So now that we know that, what nature do I want? Well, that depends on what you want your Pokemon to do. Someone new to all this will be like, I don't know, I want it to kill things and not die. If I just saw this Pokemon for the first time, I have no idea what it can do or what I want it to do. This is where you have to look closer at the specific Pokemon you chose. It's really easy to find because if you just Google the Pokemon's name, websites like Cerebi, Pokemon Database, and Bulbapedia will instantly come up that show you everything you need to know, like the Pokemon's base stats, which moves it's going to learn, what type of moves it's going to learn, and all that stuff. So this should take like 1 second to look up. So here we have Excadrill's base stats. HP isn't affected by nature, so you could just ignore that whole category, so that's cool. It makes it easier. So now we can see that this Pokemon excels in its attack and its speed. So I probably would want a nature that gets the most out of these particular stats so that I can take its strengths and maximize them to their full potential. If I maximize its speed and attack stat, that means it can hit fast and hard. Which answers the question from before, what do I want this Pokemon to do? Because I want to use it for what it's good at. I wouldn't make a golfer play football and expect him to be good. He would suck. You only get a certain amount of points to spread, so you don't want to waste any of those points adding it to a stat that you're not going to use anyway, because you want to put them all to the good thing. You don't want to be jack of all trades, master of none. So now that we know all this, let's go back to the chart. So we have a relaxed Excadrill, which will increase our defense as it levels up, but lower our speed as it levels up. So you wouldn't want to choose a nature that works against you by decreasing the one thing that you're good for. If you waste the time training up a relaxed Excadrill, it's going to be way weaker than it should. And it's a really good Pokemon, but if you're using it wrong, it's really not going to be that good. So we can see that Jolly nature increases the speed and decreases special attack. So that would be perfect because we're gaining the speed that we want, but reducing the special attack, which this Pokemon doesn't use anyway. That's why we needed to look at this Pokemon's stats first, because we could see that it has high attack, it pretty much only learns moves that are attack. So that's how we know we don't care if the special attack is reduced. And you can tell it pretty much only learns attack because they're labeled as physical and not special. The moves that are labeled status are moves that don't do damage anyway, so the stats wouldn't affect them. Like for example, a move like Sleep Powder that just puts the Pokemon to sleep instead of damaging them. If it doesn't straight up say physical or special next to the move, you can always tell which one it is by the symbol. This round swirly one stands for special attack, and this symbol that kind of looks like pow is physical. So I find it easy to remember because if you have a comic book where someone gets like punched or kicked or something like a physical attack, it usually has this symbol with something like pow or bang. So we know we ideally want a jolly Excadrill, so how do we get a jolly one? Well, that's the annoying part, because Pokemon natures are random. There's a way to get the nature you want if you want to take this further, by breeding or with special items, but if you want to just play through the game normally or battle your friends without going crazy with it, you could still do that with this knowledge. If you don't want to waste time trying to get that one specific nature, you could still tell if this Pokemon is good or bad. Which is probably more than you knew before, because you wouldn't even know what relaxed nature was. So we don't want to go crazy looking for a jolly one, so let's settle for other possible options we could find without being absolutely terrible. We could see that adamant nature increases attack and decreases special attack, so now we're getting the potential out of its good attack once again, and decreasing the thing we don't want, which is good. Or maybe we could even make use of a careful nature Excadrill, because it increases its special defense, so since it already has good attack naturally, it can still be a good attacker but also survive longer. So while you might not be able to KO the opponent first in one hit, you can survive long enough to do multiple hits. And if you don't feel like going into it with like decreased stat and the added stat and all that balance, there's also 5 natures that are completely neutral, where the stat that increases and the stat that decreases are the same, so they completely cancel each other out. So they're not gaining anything or losing anything, so instead of being the worst or the best, they're just kind of average, which might be better if you can't find a good nature and you don't want it to be garbage. I'd rather have an average Pokemon than a garbage Pokemon. So going back to our 3 level 100 Excadrill, this is the one that I raised Jolly Nature. So you can see that it already has its naturally high attack stat, but it also has the highest speed out of the 3. So if I put a fully trained Jolly Nature Excadrill against one of another nature, mine is always going to go first, and you might wonder, why does yours always get to go first if we have the same exact Pokemon at the same exact level? And that would be why. This is the one I chose Adamant Nature, so you could see that even though he has lower speed, he makes up for it by having really high attack. And then this is the one that has Quirky Nature, which is one of the neutral natures that will just kinda end up average. So you could see that it's not really excelling at anything like the other 2 are. I didn't bother to train the Relaxed Nature one because it would suck so bad that there would be no point, but it would definitely have lower speed than all of these. And you can see with all of them, I didn't even bother wasting any points in special attack, so they all have really low special attack because it doesn't matter. Obviously, I said this is the most basic guide ever to natures, and if you want to actually compete in competitive battling, you would need to have this like super precise, down to the point, perfect nature, perfect everything. There's a lot more to it. But if you just want to be better at the game, understand what the natures mean, and not waste time training a Pokemon and leveling it up that's actively working against you, that sucks. This is the simplest guide that can help you understand without all the complicated numbers and stats and percentages and crazy stuff. You can catch a Pokemon, view its nature, see what it's good for, and it can also be helpful in determining which moves to teach your Pokemon, because you shouldn't need to do a math equation and break out a calculator to understand basic things that the game doesn't tell you. Hopefully you enjoyed. Bye.
Okay, bye.